A fortune hung in the balance. A career-altering week in Abu Dhabi. Then, suddenly, Eala's mobile began to blow up. It wasn't calls from pals, but from corporate giants, poised to reshape her destiny. No one foresaw the viral explosion that ensued. A single contest, a solitary display of brilliance, and her entire universe flipped in a heartbeat. Here is the tale of how a Filipino ace transformed a standard event into a multi-million-dollar gold mine, sparking a war among global brands for her endorsement. Eala had arrived ahead of schedule. The timeline wasn't meant to move this fast. At barely 20 years old, this sensation from the Philippines had already blazed a trail most veterans only fantasize about, clutching a junior Grand Slam trophy. She was the pioneer, the first from her land to snag a WTA singles crown, carrying the pride of a whole people every time she laced up her sneakers. Yet, the professional tour, that is a completely separate animal. It is the proving ground where talent slams into hard truths, where hype battles, stress, and players either rocket to fame or vanish into obscurity. For ages, Eala had been hailed as the golden child of Philippine tennis, the chosen one destined to crack the international code. However, potential does not cover expenses, someday does not hush the critics, and promise alone surely does not lure the massive checks that turn a sportsperson into a global icon. This is precisely why the Desert Showdown was critical. The WTA 500 in the Emirates was far more than a routine stop. To Eala, it meant legitimacy. A shot to show she was top-tier material on a platform too dazzling to ignore. True, she had graced grander stages and battled harder. Rivals, dealing with immense pressure. Yet the air in Abu Dhabi held a strange, new electricity. Perhaps it was the season, the training block, or simply that magical instant when skill finally shakes hands with destiny. When she landed, she brought more than gear. She shouldered the dreams of over 110 million countrymen. She bore the burden of a pioneer in a land where hoops and pugilism usually steal the headlines. She held the heavy anticipation of investors who bet on her future, but needed cold, hard wins to back up their gamble. That kind of stress breaks people. It chews up rookies every day. But this is the divide between decent and legendary. The true greats get better when the lights get hotter. They do not wither under the gaze. They grow to fill the frame. As play commenced, it was obvious Eala was not just participating. She was taking charge. Before the opener, the experts were lurking. Mentors from her past, reporters tracking her trek from the Rafa Nadal Academy to the big leagues, and dealmakers who knew a single explosive outing could rewrite the financial script. The chatter was guarded but optimistic. If she kept her head, she could really shake things up. Yet, no one foresaw just how deafening the roar would actually be. Her skills had leveled up drastically over the last 12 months. That forehand, always dangerous, now packed lethal speed and accuracy. Her footwork was sharper, letting her chase down shots that used to fly past her younger self. Crucially, though, her headspace was completely different. The kid who once let feelings ruin a set was gone. In her place stood a tactical warrior who knew this sport is played as much in the mind as on the clay. Stepping onto the warm-up courts, rallying with her squad, she felt a snap. The atmosphere was perfect. The homework was done. For the first time in ages, the stars were in order. This was not merely another week on the tour. This was the climax Eala had been working towards since she first held a racket. The globe was about to wake up to her talent in a life-altering way. But was she built for the aftermath? The opener established the narrative. Eala entered the arena with a silent swagger that rattles enemies. Zero drama, no wasted energy, only distilled, laser-like focus. Her rival was a tour veteran, ranked within the top 50, holding all the cards in terms of tenure. She had survived plenty of challenges from hungry rookies. Theoretically, this was an easy win for the pro. But statistics cannot measure destiny. Right from the serve, Eala played with a liberation that shocked the crowd. Her delivery, usually steady but safe, suddenly had venom in it. Her rallies were ferocious, painting the lines with a regularity that defied logic. And her agility? It looked like she had memorized the geometry of the court and had an answer ready for every question asked. The seasoned veteran threw the kitchen sink at her, using wicked slices to chop apart Alex's rhythm. She mixed heavy, kicking topspin to pin her deep with feather-light drop shots to drag her forward, but nothing stuck. Every gambit met a sharper rebuttal. Her entire arsenal was dismantled piece by piece, and as the rally wore on, a look of pure horror crept across the net. The scouting report had been a lie. This wasn't some green rookie stumbling through her development. This was a predator operating on a completely different frequency. Alex took the first set 6-3, commanding without showing her full hand, before turning the second into a 6-1 masterclass. Surgical, ruthless, artistic, the match ended on a cross-court forehand that kissed the chalk so sweetly it scarred the court. The stands erupted, but the real shift happened in the pockets of the crowd as smartphones rose in unison. Feeds lit up instantly with clips of her brilliance, and in boardrooms from Asia to the West, the corporate sharks smelled blood. Yet, a single match isn't a championship, and one hot week doesn't build a legacy. Round 2 served up a nightmare, a top 30 fixture with iron in her veins and a reputation for breaking spirits. She was a human backboard, the type of grinder who refuses to gift a single inch and makes you bleed for every point. This was the crucible. This is exactly where the prodigies usually crack. When the opening round high evaporates and the grind begins, Alex didn't flinch, enduring a 2.5-hour war of attrition. There were heart-stopping stretches where experience seemed ready to strangle potential, games where Alex showed her age, where frustration bubbled up and the shadows of doubt loomed large. But she silenced them every time, uncorking a massive serve to erase a break point or nailing a fearless approach shot to steal the initiative. She even turned a desperate defensive lob into a stunning winner with a single flick of the wrist. When the final ball landed and she collapsed in glorious exhaustion, the narrative changed instantly. This wasn't a hot streak, it was a coronation. Alex Eala was screaming to the world that she had arrived and she wasn't going anywhere. The tournament rolled on, and so did the magic, with every round bringing a fresh puzzle. New rivals brought different weapons, yet she solved them all, her forehand acting like a sledgehammer against their defenses. Her movement was ghost-like, her shot selection revealing the strategic depth of a grandmaster. By the semifinals, the tennis world was wide awake, and the commentators had exhausted their supply of superlatives. Legends were tweeting their praise, and her name wasn't just buzzing locally, it was a global trending topic. Manila cleared its schedule for the semifinal broadcast. Offices went dark, classes paused, and entire villages huddled around flickering screens to watch their hero on the world stage. She danced on the edge of disaster with the calm of a sage and the fire of a teenager, a lethal combination. When she punched her ticket to the finals, the entire archipelago roared as one. But the party was premature, for the coming tsunami would wash over the sport itself, with the whole globe watching. The trophy match was set for Sunday, but by Monday dawn, Alex's reality had been rewritten. Her run in Abu Dhabi was pure voltage. Trophy or not, she had already shattered the ceiling. She had toppled giants and played with a composure that made a mockery of her birth certificate. She gave her nation a legend, but the 48 hours following the tournament were stranger than fiction. It began with the digital explosion. In the blink of an eye, her follower count surged by over 200,000 souls. Her highlight reels were looped endlessly, racking up views in the millions as celebrities jumped on the bandwagon. Global icons tipped their hats, while the hashtag Alexa dominated feeds in a dozen nations simultaneously. But viral fame is cheap. What followed was the sound of money talking. Her agents were flooded, not with small-time offers, but with the real deal. Titans of industry came knocking, global sportswear giants, international beverage conglomerates, tech firms hunting for an Asian face, and local tycoons desperate to align with national pride. The commercial hunger wasn't just heavy. For a Filipino athlete, it was uncharted territory. As one executive put it, she was the perfect storm of raw talent, impeccable timing, and cultural lightning. Alex had ceased to be just a player having a good week. She had become a symbol. She was the complete package: youthful energy, silver-tongue charisma, and elite skill that struck a chord with just about everyone. While the court junkies were hooked, her pull went far deeper, captivating the global Filipino community, inspiring girls hungry for a hero, and dazzling corporations desperate to break into the Southeast Asian scene. Her management scrambled to clear their schedules, booking back-to-back sit-downs just to manage the avalanche of commercial inquiries. Labels that once offered only a polite nod were now banging down the door, demanding contracts be signed yesterday. Even enterprises with zero history in the sport were suddenly drawing up game plans. The sheer magnitude and desperation of the calls were absolutely mind-blowing. Back home in the Philippines, the reaction bordered on hysteria. Every major masthead splashed her face across their front pages. Breakfast TV clamored for sound bites, senators fired off congratulatory posts, and the National Sports Commission immediately pledged fresh capital to overhaul local tennis academies. Alex wasn't just swinging a racket anymore. She had transformed into a living, breathing icon of national pride. For the partners who backed her early on, it was like winning the lottery. Their faith in the rookie was paying off in dividends they never imagined. Their notification feeds were practically melting down. Just standing in her shadow generated immense goodwill. One backer clocked a 35% engagement spike barely 72 hours after her Abu Dhabi showcase. Yet the most powerful shift was happening on the ground. Little girls were dusting off old rackets, signing up for clinics, and begging mom and dad for court time. This Eala effect was igniting a genuine grassroots revolution, sparking a fire in the next generation that went far beyond trophies or titles. Through the media storm, the prodigy stayed cool as ice. At the microphone, she deflected the praise, turning the spotlight onto her crew, her bloodline, and the roar of the Filipino crowd. She spoke passionately about the weight and honor of wearing the flag on her chest. While she framed the pressure as high-octane fuel rather than a heavy load, the view from behind the curtain was far more tangled. Her handlers were staring down some brutal crossroads. Who gets the yes? How do you film ads without skipping leg day? Do you cash out while the iron is hot, or play the long game to build an empire? The proposals on the table were nothing short of life-changing. You had domestic giants throwing six figures, global titans offering 7, and appearance checks that made her prize money look like pocket change. Her financial world was flipping upside down in real time. According to a single valuation expert, her brand equity had surged by over 500% in just 7 days. Another claimed she was the hottest ticket in Filipino sports since the glory days of Manny Pacquiao. And this wasn't just hype or fluff. These claims were backed by cold, hard offer letters being haggled over in boardrooms across the globe. It wasn't a matter of if she'd get rich from the Abu Dhabi run, the deposit slips were already written. The real puzzle was how she'd navigate this gold rush without losing her edge on the clay. That's where the true gauntlet began. But let's get down to brass tacks. Pre-Abu Dhabi, she was pulling in roughly $300,000 to $400,000 a year. Decent cash for a rookie, but peanuts compared to the icons. Her portfolio was mostly hometown labels and niche global. Outfits betting on a maybe. Once the final ball dropped in Abu Dhabi, the entire chessboard was rearranged. The first domino to fall was a colossal sportswear titan. While the paperwork is sealed, whispers in the locker room point to a 3-year pact valued at roughly $2.5 million, with sweeteners that could skyrocket the total. We're talking shoes, clothes, rackets, and a clause for her own signature collection if she hits her ranking targets. Make no mistake, this wasn't a handout. It was a sniper shot. The corporation had been tracking her trajectory for months, crouching in the tall grass, waiting for the perfect split second to pull the trigger. That desert showdown was their signal. She proved she could trade blows with the absolute best. Her viral numbers showed she could move the needle, while her status as a cultural beacon in Asia made her a strategic weapon, not just a tennis player. But they weren't the only heavy hitters pulling up a chair. A beverage behemoth jumped into the fray, fighting for a regional crown. The pitch? Make her the unmistakable face of their Asia-Pacific Blitz TV spots, viral clips, and red carpet appearances. Reports pegged the yearly payout at over $800,000, with rollover options if she kept stealing the headlines. Even the tech sector smelled blood in the water. An electronics giant tabled a partnership mixing gadget promotion with a headline role in their Southeast Asian youth outreach. Meanwhile, a rival firm pitched her as the avatar for their fitness ecosystem, desperate to tap into her stranglehold on the digital native crowd. Back home in the archipelago, the corporate hunger for her signature wasn't just strong, it was ravenous. One telecom giant threw a massive multi-year contract on the table, demanding everything from glossy magazine spreads to primetime TV spots and live galas. A heavyweight banking institution sought to crown her the new icon of their financial literacy campaigns for Gen Z. Then came the retail titans, proposing a hybrid role where modeling shoots would sit side by side with grassroots tennis workshops. When you looked at the bottom line, the numbers were practically dizzying. Even the most cautious analysts predicted her portfolio could swell to between $5 and $7 million within a single year, provided she kept crushing it on the court. If you looked through rose-colored glasses, assuming she kept climbing the ladder, and snatching trophies, that ceiling shattered, revealing a payday north of $10 million annually. But the X factor driving this frenzy wasn't just skill. It was her raw, unfiltered reality. She wasn't some plastic product of a PR machine. She forged her reputation in the fire of grueling practice sessions and unglamorous grit. Her journey hit home because it bled truth. A young islander venturing overseas, taking the hits, and rising from the ashes to conquer the globe. That kind of arc is what advertisers call lightning in a bottle. They weren't simply renting space in front of tennis fans. They were purchasing a stake in hope, in resilience, and in the swelling chest of national patriotism. Companies wanted that instant trust factor, showing the local market that one of their own was dominating the international arena. It was a play for deep cultural resonance in a society that worships the holy trinity of diligence, kinship, and victory. Navigating this flood required a sniper's precision. Not every bag of cash was worth grabbing, especially when some logos clashed with current obligations. Other proposals were tossed aside because they didn't vibe with her moral compass or the legacy she is building. It became a high-stakes chess game, weighing quick payouts against the longevity of her career and the purity of her name. The plot twist came from unexpected sectors, industries that usually couldn't care less about forehands and backhands. Haute couture labels eyed her as the next it girl, while academic institutions hoped to spotlight her brainpower alongside her athleticism. Wall Street-style firms even saw her as the perfect bridge to ambitious hustlers and young corporate climbers. While the wealth was undoubtedly transformative, this gold rush represented something far more significant: legitimate recognition. Each dotted line signed was concrete evidence that she had evolved from a prodigy to watch into a full-blown icon. She was no longer just an athlete, she was an enterprise, a walking economy whose signature held weight regardless of the scoreboard. To keep this machine oil-free, her camp had to aggressively expand their payroll. Suddenly, the room was filled with legal eagles scrutinizing fine print, brand strategists, and wealth managers obsessed with tax shelters and generational fortune. The operation surrounding this teenager was rapidly mimicking the fortresses built around veterans of the sport. Naturally, the skeptics started whispering, wondering if the boardroom meetings would sabotage her court time. And honestly, they weren't exactly wrong to worry. The road to glory is littered with the careers of kids who grab the cash early only to watch their skills evaporate. Walking the tightrope between commercial shoots and conditioning drills is dangerous, but her squad seemed ready to hold the safety net. Every agreement was engineered with escape hatches and clauses that fiercely protected her training blocks. They put a hard cap on media days, favoring partners who understood that winning matches came before selling products. The game plan was clinical, calculated, and prioritized a decade of dominance over a quick buck, and the entire globe held its breath to see if the strategy would hold. That singular triumph in the desert didn't just shift the needle, it rewrote the entire script for what a Filipino racketeer could achieve. The seven-figure checks, the swelling hearts of a nation, the kids picking up rackets for the first time, it all stems from there. An entire movement ignited by 7 days of spectacular performance. Yet we're merely reading the prologue. The main chapters are still unwritten. Will she solidify her status as the icon the islands have prayed for? Will the crushing weight of expectation harden her like a diamond or shatter her? Will the fortune feed her hunger or dull her edge? The clock is ticking and the verdict is out, but make no mistake, the spotlight isn't going anywhere. If you're hungry to witness the next twist in this saga, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you're front row for every update. Sound off in the comments, does she have the mental steel to crack the top 10? Let's get the debate started. Catch you in the mantle. Next one,